Hello, crypto news viewers. Today is December 24th, 2025, and the top cryptocurrency news is as follows. We start today's episode with El Salvador, where we learn that the head of the International Monetary Fund's mission in El Salvador issued a statement confirming that government authorities are in negotiations to sell the country's Bitcoin wallet called Chivo, which is a state-owned wallet. This is part of the deal that El Salvador has made to receive $1.4 billion. Essentially, this deal states that El Salvador is not to buy Bitcoin. From El Salvador, we will also reach out to the Central Bank of Russia, which is slowly starting to allow retail investors to invest. More specifically, there is a proposal from the central bank that would allow both specialized and non-specialized investors to buy cryptocurrencies, but with restrictions. One of the restrictions is how much money they will put in, which has not yet been clarified. But the other thing that struck me is that both specialized and non-specialized investors will have to pass a knowledge test before they can start investing. This is something you don't see often, especially in cryptocurrencies. Continuing from Russia, we will also go to America and the CFTC, which is changing course. Mr. Michael Selig is now the 16th chairman of the CFTC. The gentleman is in favor of cryptocurrencies, like all the big funds in the US government now. Let me also tell you that in America, the interest on the US debt is going to be $1 trillion, all of it interest, by 2025 alone, tripling from $345 billion in 2020, and now exceeding America's defense spending. So America is paying more on interest than on weapons. Who would have predicted this? Moving on to our exchanges, we're going to go to a central one, and we're going to start with Bybit, which is just leaving Japan because the rules there are too strict for the exchange to operate, it seems. And moving on, we're going to a centralized exchange, and we're going to Aave, where someone is asking me why it's been down so much lately, down 19% on the 7-day chart. We've already covered the reason on Crypto News, but we'll start with an article written in the last few hours that says Aave is facing an identity crisis, as Aave community members and participants have been sharply divided in recent weeks over control of the protocol's brand and associated assets, escalating an ongoing dispute over the relationship between the decentralized Autonomous Organization, DAO, and Aave Labs. Let's say we've been talking about all this on Crypto News for 8 to 9 days now, where I told you that there is a conflict between the Aave DAO and Aave Labs, the company that makes Aave, because it was found that a mechanism was transferring some gas fees, a percentage of them to Aave Labs wallets and not to the DAO wallets for the community to manage. So for this reason, in the last few days, Aave has just been falling because the community is competing with the Aave Foundation for who will have the money. And moving on, it's time to go to our favorite cryptocurrency market, where Bitcoin is at $87,000. We're touching our resistance a little bit. However, VanEck is happy with Bitcoin's hash rate, as the shrinking miners is a countersign and indicates renewed momentum for Bitcoin, says VanEck. So let's talk about hash rate. As I've said in previous episodes, Bitcoin's hash rate usually moves in line with price. That is, you can't see a new all-time high in Bitcoin without Bitcoin's hash rate also being at an all-time high. While when Bitcoin's hash rate drops, that's usually a sign that we're at our low. And VanEck tells us something like that too. Specifically, mining activity is often interpreted as a sign of network stress, reflecting weaker miner profitability, declining hash rate, and concerns about the financial viability of mining operations. This is usually seen as bad for Bitcoin's price. Digital asset investment firm VanEck, however, argues that periods of declining hash rate have historically acted as a contrarian indicator, indicating improving price momentum rather than a sign of structural weakness. That is, it tells you that when the hash rate has dropped a lot, it indicates that we are already at the bottom and that we are not going to fall any further. Continuing, let me tell you that in the last 30 days, the Bitcoin network hash rate recorded the smallest drop since April 2024. VanEck found that when the hash rate growth over 90 days was negative, Bitcoin had positive 180-day returns in 77% of the cases, which means that the price performance over the next 6 months is higher than average compared to periods of hash rate growth. And while we are talking about hash rate, let me tell you about capitulation. According to the indicators we have, capitulation has reached an all-time high. When this orange wave reaches a new all-time high, Bitcoin's price traditionally finds itself at an all-time low. That wraps up the top news for crypto today, December 24th, 2025. I'd like to remind you that the content you just watched is created for educational purposes only and should not be considered as investment advice, but rather as investment opinion. Please subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and feel free to comment. Take care, everyone, and have a good day.